Alright, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Chris Bargo's Album Club. As usual today, we've been doing two albums randomly picked from a list of our submissions, and we'll be listening to them, deciding which one we like better. You know, the whole song and dance as usual. Today with me, of course, I have Ben.
Only wanna be with you.
Matthew.
Give me your body language.
Fan.
No one knows.
And Paper.
Alright guys, here's my impression of Bob Dylan singing Buddy Holly by Weezer. What's with these homies dissing my girl?
Okay. Well, that was interesting. So, we're just gonna hop right into it, after that. So you already hear what today's albums are.
I guess so.
Yes.
Alright, today's albums are Dune Part 2 by Hans Zimmer, it's the soundtrack for the movie, and Hozier by Hozier. So, very strange pairing. Both 24th Century, one of them's a film score, one of them's not, one of them's a studio album. So, we'll go into initial impressions. We'll start with you, Ben.
Oh my gosh, what a weird. I don't even think these albums are comparable at all. I haven't listened to them as albums, but I mean, Dune 2 soundtrack is just the soundtrack to Dune 2. Obviously, Hans Zimmer is a great composer for film, but it has good sound. It's a good soundtrack to Dune, but I don't really know how I'm going to compare it to Hozier. I do know the song Take Me to Church, which is pretty good, actually. I think I generally like Hozier, so I should probably like this album, but I haven't listened to it. I have no clue how I'm going to compare these two albums, though. They're not similar at all.
Matthew.
One is a film score of my personal favorite movie of 2024, and the other is the debut album of one of the more underrated music artists in the world today. So I can't wait.
Fan.
Well, this is dumb. I guess I don't have much else to say other than that. Excited to listen to one guy for 2 minutes and 19 seconds. And I don't know who Hozier is. I've heard of him. He's probably Canadian.
Famously Canadian Hozier.
Yes.
What?
He's Neil Young's son. He's Neil Young's son. He's
famously a very Canadian man.
Yeah, he's very famously Canadian. He literally wears, like, a big red maple leaf on his head, and, like, he bathes daily in maple syrup. That's why he's too sweet! Paper, come on!
And he also takes his whiskey lean.
Yeah, Paper...
And his coffee black, and his bed at 3.
That is very true.
This is very weird. One of these is one of the more successful breakout albums of the 2010s. And one is the soundtrack to a movie I have yet to see. And that is going to be very weird. Yeah, I don't even know how you would compare these two.
Alright, Oh, it's me. Okay, sorry. I got distracted there from all the Canadian bacon. So yeah, these albums, I am familiar with the song "Take Me to Church" by Hozier. I am also familiar with "Too Sweet." I've heard that a lot. That was a big hit from last year. Doesn't look like either of those songs or on this album. Obviously, I knew that.
Take Me to Church.
Take Me to Church. Sorry, okay, hold on. I have a track list to go, but I was looking later on down. I somehow skipped over the full song. Okay, Take Me to Church is on this album. I know that song. Too Sweet, obviously, I knew it was too new for this, so it should be nice. I generally like Hozier. He seems like a chill dude. As for Dune Part 2, I have not seen the Dune movies. Not for one of Sting, but also not these more recent ones with Timothée Chalamet. Well, I have read the book, the first one, and I didn't like it. I thought it was pretty stupid, so that's why I haven't watched the movies, because I didn't like the book. There you go.
Also, Star Wars is just Dune, but for babies, essentially.
Star Wars is Dune, but without the homophobia.
Well, it's also Dune. Star Wars is Dune, except it isn't really a ripoff.
Well, I do like Star Wars. I do not like Dune, or at least not the book. I'm assuming the movies, probably the more recent ones at least, maybe not the ones from the 80s, but more the one with Sting, but maybe the more recent ones are on HBO, I'm assuming have cut out some of the stuff I objected to. But still, I read the book, didn't find all that still, didn't really like it. As such, I haven't watched the movies. Movies maybe at least somewhat better, I assume probably are, given the time period in which they were made, but I'm not really interested in watching the Dune movies. I'm not really interested in listening to their soundtrack either. So, and also I just kind of question how much of a place a film score has on the album club. Like, yeah, it's music. I think it can be good. I think that's perfectly valid form of music. It can work on here. But just like us all listening to just a score of a movie we haven't seen, other than Matthew and maybe Ben. I wasn't clear if he had seen it or not. It's just not. It's not really probably the best idea here, but it was with random number generator picked out. I have no rule banning movie soundtracks of this sort, so we're all doing it. It is considered fair game, but I don't know. At least for me, I'll just have to power through this one. Maybe Fan with his musical analysis, all his chord progressions and whatever. Maybe he'll have something cool to say about it, but I probably won't have much either to say. Sorry. And on that note, I think it's about time we better all go listen to these albums and start formulating thoughts on them. As I said, I don't know how much thoughts people will have on Dune. But yeah, we just need to go listen to them now, so we'll be right back with our thoughts. Alright, we're back now and have listened to the albums, and we are going to be starting with Dune Part 2 by Hans Zimmer. Sorry, I couldn't remember which one was first there. And we are starting with you, Ben. What are your thoughts on this album?
I don't really have much to say about it, I'm afraid. I thought that it was a good score. I mean, as was mentioned earlier, Hans Zimmer does tend to be rather minimalistic. A lot of times this was rather minimalistic. I do think it matches the plot of the movie pretty well. I thought it sounded good, but there's not really much to say in much detail. Maybe Matthew has a lot more detail to go into, and I would like to hear that, but I really do not have that much to say about it, other than it was okay to listen to while doing my walk, which is what I did. So that's, I don't know. I mean, it was pleasant enough. I still like the Star Wars soundtracks better. I mean, scores. Anyway. Handing over to Matthew.
Alright, we're going on to you, Matthew.
I really enjoyed listening to the score again. I wouldn't say necessarily that this is Hans Zimmer's best work. I think Hans Zimmer's best work that he did was on Inception and Interstellar. But this is just like a really good score to like how describing the events that happen in Arrakis and the storyline of the movie, but just even separating the movie itself. I think the score best portrays like the intensity and the emotion of the story. Particularly, I like the track Arrival. I think that was my favorite track of this. Also, there's like a motif that is used throughout the movie, like most movies do. Like, most movie scores have like a kind of a theme that is used throughout the movie. Like Star Wars, like Lion King, like any other movie. So that's not that shocking. Um, yeah, this was pretty solid work.
Alrighty, Fan.
All right, so I was looking through my stuff, and when Ben was like, "I don't have a lot to say," and I'm like, "I don't think I have a lot to say either." Then I realized I have 7 pages of notes, so I guess I do have a lot to say. Blah! I thought the whole somebody's got to talk about this thing.
He's gonna
Somebody
carry us.
needs to talk about it. Yeah.
I'm thankful for you, bro.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. So this is certainly an interesting record. One thing that I really appreciate, first and foremost, is it's very difficult to create music for an entirely different world. And then to separate that from the world it is created for is a very interesting thing to do. So, as somebody who's never seen the movie, a lot of my takes are certainly going to be more based around, music and what it's like for me to listen to, as opposed to what it is going to more of a review of an album as opposed to a soundtrack. So keep that in mind. I do wish I could have gone into this with absolutely no knowledge of the world at all and going completely blind and see what conjures up in my mind. But I'm aware that this is a sand world, but even with that minimal knowledge, I'm able to create different images in my head. Yeah. I mean, I do have 7 pages. It's like 7 pages on a notes app, but it isn't like 7 pages of a Google document. That will be long. I like that there are tribal sounding elements, almost as if this is some kind of cultural folk music. There's certainly some tracks that do the whole jump scare kind of thing. Waters of Life. One thing I noticed was it had vague similarities to Witches. To Witch and Size by Goblin off the Suspiria soundtrack. Of course, Hans is done in less song form, his were made more to fit the film's moments, as opposed to scare the listener. One of the nice things about listening to an album like this is you can read the titles and see if you agree with what it is or not, like, what it says. Like, a time of quiet before the storm doesn't necessarily remind me of that at all. It reminded me more of like a sunrise or a babbling brook, at least during the quieter moments. Then it kind of started to become more epic and just kind of made me think of a fight scene, because this is a lot of this is kind of fight scene music kind of sounding, or trailer type stuff. The big epic swells, which is a little bit of a shame because I really liked what that track specifically was going for. One trick that Hans liked to use a lot is the old half/full step slide, where he plays a note and then slowly slides it up to the next pitch. At the start of Ornithopter Attack, I believe it's Ornithopter, he goes from A and then slides it up to B flat, and then like halfway to B before stopping, using some kind of synth, possibly a continuum, which would be really cool. Used famously at the start of Octavarium, the song Octavarium by Dream Theater, not the album. Of course, you can just use a pitch bender on any keyboard to do that. But for me, like, my keyboard only goes up a half step. I'm sure, however, Hans Zimmer, very famous composer, probably has access to one where he can bend up the pitch a little bit more than a half step. He probably has access to that technology. But things like that kind of give a nice microtonal vibe, which of course is very foreign to our Western ear, and adds that kind of element to it. And microtonal stuff is cool. I mean, King Gizzard does it. They're not bad. People like them. I am pretty fond of them. I'm not like obsessed, but they're cool, and they do a lot of that stuff. So if you're into microtonal and you haven't heard of King Gizzard, check them out. And this is going to be a weird one, but this album did kind of remind me of the Dylan record we did last week. And both of these albums are kind of there to paint a picture in your mind about what is going on. Of course, Dylan is doing that with the lyrics and allowing you to imagine yourself in these certain scenarios. Whereas in this, it's the music allows you to paint imagery for yourself to imagine yourself in different kind of sci-fi, different types of worlds or whatever. So of course they go about the imagery and storytelling in different ways, but to me these two records actually kind of capture the same essence and kind of the same spirit, because they're both about painting pictures and creating stories in your head, which not all music I don't think is meant to do. Both of those kind of are. So in some ways this kind of reminds me of Dylan in a weird roundabout way. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people who disagree with me on that, but that's kind of how I think. One of the problems I do have with this record, it's certainly not a flawless record, is a lot of these songs just go from quiet to loud, or they're just loud. I really enjoyed a lot of the patient pieces a lot more than the louder ones. Of course, the build-ups that are cool, but when they do it almost every time, and it's kind of annoying. I think some more restraint would have served this record better. A tune like Seduction didn't need the stinger at the end. Like, why he decides for the last 5 seconds just go boom right at the end of this like quiet 2.5 minute piece and then just crash right there at the end. It confuses me. I guess a lot of these things can be explained away as they needed that for the film, which is very possible. But I am reviewing this as an album and not a film score, so I'm going to express from my personal experiences, and I thought I'd bring it up. Although I do acknowledge that this argument is potentially in bad faith, and I do recognize that, because it could be necessary for the movie, but I'm viewing this as an album, not as the music for a film while watching a film. So I also think briefly we should talk about Hans Zimmer's musical approach. Han is very much a minimalist composer. He uses a lot of electronic and ambient approaches as well. As far as Western film composers, he's probably second only behind, of course, John Williams. We should also throw in Ennio Morricone for credibility purposes as well, because who doesn't love Ennio Morricone? But I want to pick up John because, in contrast, they're such different beasts altogether. John is very lush, very active. He has a lot going on in his approach. Is very orchestral. I mean, for the record, Star Wars, the theme to Star Wars had a disco version go to number 1 of the charts for 2 weeks in 1977. Nobody can make a Hans Zimmer disco tune for the Dune soundtrack. Technically, you could. Like, oh wow, I made this song, but it wouldn't actually really work.
Fan.
What?
You do disco arrangements and stuff, don't you? I seem to recall you saying something about All Along the Watchtower or something.
I did write a disco arrangement all around the Watchtower. Yes, correct.
Well, it sounds like you have a new project worked out for you, a new pet project.
I brought this upon myself, didn't I?
You did.
Alright, give me a month. I'll give you guys Disco Dune 2.
Thank you.
But, I mean, you could do something with it, but it kind of would be the same. And I do think comparing and contrasting these two are really nice, because they are so famous at doing the same thing, but they're so different. Like I said, John is very, very active overall. The most active stuff you're going to get in this are, like, the tribalistic drumming type stuff. And even then, for something like Worm Army, there's probably only like 6 prominent voices at most throughout the whole thing. Whereas you might be able to listen to John Williams, and there'll be like 20 prominent voices if you're really paying attention. Throughout like the 80-plus piece orchestra, there'll be at least like 20 very prominent things that are going on. This is very much music that it's much easier to let your mind wander and to create things in your mind while listening to it, which is a compliment. I think that is a good thing for a film score. I do like overly active film scores. Sometimes I don't. Taxi Driver is a great film score. This is kind of irrelevant. I did write multiple papers on the taxi driver school in college, so I'm going to briefly touch on that. I guess this isn't a part of my notes, it's unplanned, but something like that was kind of lush jazz, kind of small quartet, maybe more than quartet, but small arrangement piece stuff. Is very cool, and stuff very lush, but very different kind of lush. I like that kind of stuff, and this is stuff that is along those lines. Although this is a lot more ambient. That's not ambient. So just one of the songs, the violin or viola, I couldn't tell which was on You Fought Well. I thought that was nice. I just thought it was worth pointing out. One thing that did upset me was that you hired Guthrie Govan to do the guitar work for this record, and you have an 81-minute record, and you don't even give him time to lay out. Give not even 20-second spot for him to let loose. I mean, come on, you could hire basically anyone with a basic reading ability, and they could have done the job with 2 days of prep at most. We did the Raven that refused to sing here, so everybody, I guess, except the paper, are aware of how amazing his guitar work is. So it just seems like a waste to hire somebody so talented. I mean, I'm happy he got paid, and I'm happy he got the work, for sure. But, give him, it's an ambient soundtrack. Just give him some nice foundation and just give him 20 seconds of shred. If you hire the guy, let him do what he does best. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm asking. It doesn't even have to be on the movie soundtrack. I mean, a good chunk of this music isn't probably even in the movie, so just let him lay out. All right. But overall, this record gets a thumbs up for me. It's unique. I wouldn't listen to it frequently, but it does its job well. This is obviously not a record made to be full of hooks. It's made to fill the space and amplify your own surroundings, whether that be Iraqis or whether that be in your living room. And I think this album does that job rather well.
All right, thank you, Fan. And we are moving on to Paper. Paper, what were your thoughts on this album?
All right, so gonna open this up by saying I have yet to see Dune 2. But anyway, I could definitely see how this would accentuate movies in accentuate scenes in the movie. Keyword is accentuate. I think that the main purpose of this soundtrack is to primarily be an accessory to a scene to make the scenes themselves more impactful. Standing alone, it doesn't hold the same weight. And that's how we're listening to these. We're listening to these as standalone, by themselves without any supplementary media. And so, yeah, soundtracks serve to either to be primarily standalone, like if we're talking about Awesome Mix, for instance, but fitting it's primarily kind of standalone, but fitting the vibe of a scene, or sacrificing their ability to stand alone by placing more weight in the framing of scenes instead. And this soundtrack does the latter. For me, there are just far too many breaks and pauses meant for dialogue or some other aspect like that. And there's just far too many, as I think it was Ben who said it, might have been Fan, very sudden volume increases from just dead silence or breaks to just very large, booming, sweeping movements that, when listening by themselves, aren't that pleasing to my ears. And it takes away from the listening experience a little bit. I did like a few moments on the album. I did really enjoy Ornithopter Attack, high energy. And I don't know. I don't have too much else to say besides that. Just not for me in a personal listening sense, but I could see how it'd be very good for a movie soundtrack. Score, whatever.
All right, that brings us to me, and I will say that my personal impression as somebody who had not seen the movie was essentially this soundtrack sounded like it sounded kind of like this. Vroom, 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 vroom. amid some like tribal chanting, you know, I am my, you know, that's me actually doing the Lion King, but still some like tribal chanting, maybe occasionally even silence again, and then vroom, 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 and it's over again. I'm assuming the boom, boom, you know, the boom sounds. I'm assuming that's when like a worm shows up or something. I haven't seen the movie, but as I said, I actually have read the book, although it's been some time. So, I think Matthew has seen the film, so he can maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I wasn't sure if Ben had seen the film either. He might have, but still, that may be when a worm shows up, or I'm assuming that's when something pops out, right? Just whoever, if anyone knows, feel free to just break in here. But, if not, that's fine too. So, the whole soundtrack, in a lot of ways, just sound like that over and over again. The number of times that happens, like I would imagine if it is warm jump scares, like, how many times can you pull off a, you know, worm bursting out of the desert and still have it be unexpected if it's happening, like, every, like, minute and 15 seconds. Like surely it's not, like, scary again after, like, the upteenth time you do it. I'm not actually sure that's actually what's going on in the film, but this music is kind of, like, sudden, kind of build up, and then, bam, music. And it just seems to me like, as music, it seems to be fitting a scene. But the scene it's fitting, based off of my interpretation of the scene from its music, is that the scene I'm getting is, like, really repetitive, and it seems like after just so many times of whatever it is that's happening, it seems like it would get old after a while. I haven't seen the film, but just, I guess, reading the music, trying to imagine what the movie's like from the music, which is kind of interesting. It paints a picture of a kind of boring movie to me. Maybe the movie's not. But, I don't know, the soundtrack makes it sound like that. So I didn't find the soundtrack all that great. And I think the soundtrack honestly may be giving kind of an uncharitable impression of the film. Whether or not the film's actually bad or not is something else. But, still, this album, I just found it boring. It was basically 81 minutes of this same thing over and over again. Just these kind of build-ups to something happening, and then stopping, and it just rinse and repeat. And it's just, I don't know, I was bored with that, you know. How many climaxes do you do? On top of that, I've never been really a big fan of the whole synth swell thing, especially in movie soundtracks. It's overused. Literally every single film trailer now sounds like this. And this sounded like, just like when you go to the movie theater and you're like, oh crap, I should have come here late, as opposed to on time for the showing. Now I have to watch these trailers, and it's just like, it's those sounds just like, but for like 81 minutes. I don't care how good the film I'm going to see is. I wouldn't sit through 81 minutes of trailers first. So, yikes, I guess. This just wasn't it. This was kind of generic, kind of trailer movie sounding music. And, you know, I believe there was some talk about this briefly in the, old text channels in between all filming sessions here, that Hans Zimmer is maybe partially responsible for the, I guess, the sound. He's very influential and is maybe kind of responsible for the sound of every modern trailer trying to sound like him, I guess. And this is him, so it's not really like... I just don't know. I'm just not sure that really makes any better. It's still boring. It's still generic. It's not a sound I like. And it's boring. It's boring and cliche. The Inception horn, as Paper has just called it in our text channel. Not a fan of it. Maybe in like one film or something it works. I have seen Inception. That's a pretty good film. I don't remember its music that well, but I liked the rest of it. But Dune. I've not seen the movie, but based off of its soundtrack, I'm not planning on seeing it because it sounds boring. It sounds like it's just random cheap thrills of wombs popping out of the desert just every minute and 15 seconds. And, first time it happens, maybe it's cool, but, 81 minutes of that? No. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. I've probably talked too much, ranted too much about this Dune album. But, suffice to say, I didn't like it. And on that note, does anyone have anything else they wish to say about Dune before we move on?
It should have gotten nominated for Best Original Score, but also the Oscars have a weird requirement for score.
Alright. Well, maybe one down the channel we will speak more about award snubbing. We're moving on to the Hozier-Album, Hozier, and I believe people said I was pronouncing this wrong, so I am going to call on his expertise. People, can you please unmute? Thank you.
I looked it up. It's Hozier, apparently, or Hozier. Like Hozier or something. It's
It's Hozier. He's secretly from
No,
Indiana.
no. Yeah, I don't know. I was interested in like
Famously Indiana singer Hozier. No, he's from Indiana. Didn't you know? Or even more,
Hozier.
he's from Canada.
What?
Hozier, apparently how his name is said. Apologies to the man for us.
Hozier.
Apologies to the man for us struggling with this, especially early on in this video, but even now. But we were moving on to discuss the album. Ben, what were your thoughts of this album?
So I thought that this album was quite good. I do have more concrete thoughts on this album and its songs than the previous album. Of course, the opening track.
You will? I hope it's now in the present and not in the future.
Sure. Anyway. The opening track is, of course, well known to me. Take Me to Church. Its music video, most notably, is gay, but the song's lyrics are not actually gay. He's talking about a woman in it. But, the song I do still associate with LGBT themes. Thanks to the music video. I think that the lyrics about worshipping like a dog in church at the shine of your lies is a very interesting imagery. It's just it's of course like this kind of desperate romance lust. Almost thematically in that regard similar to a song that sounds completely the opposite of it. Is the kind of desperation almost reminds me of a Loveful, even though, and that one is kind of clear that the guy's not interested in her, right? This song, the woman he's singing to is very unclear, but he does compare it to, he says it's whole lies, the sharpening of whole knife, right? So that dynamic kind of reminds me of the dynamic in the song Loveful. That's in the straight reading, though, right? Gender swap to Loveful, but with like a freaky, as people said in the chat, have a freaky ass sex vibe, as opposed to this just kind of like insane infatuation in that song. And of course, I sound like this kind of southern gothic sound to this song, despite it being Irish. That is not the case from the Swedes. Anyway, so I think that this is, but I also do associate with this kind of like, I do associate also with this reading of like church as inverted imagery, right? Well, it's clearly an inverted imagery, even in this kind of like the full version, or we'll hear more from Paper on his version, I'm sure. But, I think that, I mean, the reading of church as being an inverted symbol relative to gayness also, I think, works. And Kelly Hozier considered it. You can tell this in the music video, for instance. Hozier, I mean, the idea of take me to church as a metaphor for gay sex, that there's lies, etc. I mean, that is hidden. I mean, we've seen a lot more of this kind of imagery, but without the church so much in Chapel Bone recently. But that, you know, this kind of idea of closetedness, I think is taken up in here. Anyway, moving on to other songs that I liked. I also liked the old song Jackie and Wilson. The idea that you're naming your two children after Jackie Wilson, the single, and like this tribute to R&B. I thought that was very nice. I thought the song In a Week was pretty good. I'm trying to remember which song this is now. Give me a second. How about I can't remember the name of this? There's a song in here where he's clearly describing. Is it In a Week? That's the yeah, it's In a Week. The duet with Kellen Cowley, whoever that is. Is I thought was also quite good. But for both Two Corpses in a Grave, I thought that was very interesting imagery. That after they get eaten by the buzzards, the insects, the foxes, and the raven, they'll be home. That's a very interesting sentiment, but I think works. So the songs I like best on here will Take Me to Church, Jackie and Wilson, and In a Week. But altogether, I thought, well, this song has this kind of really southern gothic sound to it. Some of it just has to do, with how his voice sounds. But altogether, it also has very dark instrumentation, though. I think that it works even on songs that are not super dark in here. So I think that the tone of this album is pretty consistent. I'm sure Fan will have a lot more to say about instrumentals that I don't. But altogether, I really did like this album. It was a solid album. I already liked Hozier, or however his name's pronounced, and I still like him.
Ben still likes him. There you go, guys. Ben still likes him. If it was any doubt. Alright, we're moving on to Matthew, who seems to be coughing. Matthew, what were your thoughts on this album?
I was actually clearing my throat. I actually quite enjoyed this album. I actually enjoyed Hozier self-titled more than previous times I've listened to this as a whole. Of course, Take Me to Church is like a standout track, although I would say it is not my favorite track of this album. I think my favorite track is Someone New, which is my personal favorite Hozier song. A lot of good stuff here from Eden, Work Song, Foreigner's God, Cherry Wine, and even Jackie and Wilson. I will say, like, at the second half of the album, it kind of slows down for me. I think that it isn't as strong as the first half is. Like, the songs are still pretty good, but it kind of, I wouldn't say draws you to sleep, but it kind of slows down. But overall, I still think this is a pretty solid work.
Well, there you go. Matthew says it's pretty solid. So, well, going on to Fan.
Alright, so my notes are often pretty, I lay them as I listen. And then sometimes I go back and change things, but sometimes I don't. So I just kind of wrote as I was going throughout the album, and it's pretty much my descent into madness.
It's like you're literally the character from Apocalypse Now. This is Apocalypse Now.
It might be. It might be. So, Take Me to Church sounded familiar, but I didn't think it was really any good. It's like that mid-2010 stuff, like that extremely reverb, loud production. It sounds like it's mixed even louder than like an Oasis record. I mean, it sounds like there's a really good song in there. Maybe not a really good song, but there's a song in there that would not be bad, but it's just killed by the overproduction and over singing. The sound is always making my eyes roll, but I think it's just overly dramatic for no reason. Sounds like it wants to be like movie trailer music. So multiple songs in, I feel like I'd be enjoying this record if it wasn't so over dramatic. Angel of Small Death, I thought was good. Like that song, I actually like the song itself. I really like, but it was just that production. Not everything needs a choir. The guitars don't always need this much fuzz. It's like half incomprehensible, which to me is like that's the big issue because the songs aren't necessarily bad. They're kind of hokey. I'm not like in love with them, but I wouldn't scoff at them. Like my first impression of this would be like a pretty good like 5 out of 10 or so. Like not a bad record. A pretty solid mid-tier record if it wasn't for that production. I like the 5/8 in From Eden. You get bonus points for using 5/8 for me every time. In a Week was just boring and overlong. As the record goes on, I feel like the songs just got worse and more boring. At least like Angel of Small Death was an interesting song. Sedated was just boring and annoying. It makes me wish I was sedated. Sometimes, like I kind of had a hypothetical kind of thing that I wrote out as what probably would have been my concluding argument, which was, if I could describe this album in one sentence, it would be, this is a solid mid-tier rock album collapsing under the weight of its giant production. But I was dead wrong, because after the first 3 or 4 songs, this album just becomes a slog. It's an album full of dirges. It's not fun to listen to. I mean, there are millions of people that like this, so like, I mean, it's not like this isn't something that people like, but I don't get it at all. It just kept droning on and on and on. It was just like so annoying, and so it was just wow. I mean, I don't even know if I'm gonna remember who Hozier is in 3 days. Hozier, as I believe Paper said. Whatever his name is, I don't really care. This was bad as far as I'm concerned.
Paper.
Well, I think that this album is great. It's clear that Hozier's songwriting on this album is what launched his career into being a top 100 artist on Spotify currently. Like, that's pretty dang impressive. But it's clear to me at least why. I think he excels at writing choruses of songs specifically, though, because at least to me, basically all of them on this album are catchy, fun, memorable, or any mix of the three. I think that this album is pretty close to being, at least to me, all killer, no filler, but a track or two on here didn't click with me all that much, but having a few songs out of 13 being just good instead of great, with the rest of them being great, that's nothing to sneeze at for me. It's just a fun and memorable album. Like, yeah, songs like Jackie and Wilson, of course, Take Me to Church. I really enjoyed the second track, Angel of Small Death, and the codeine scene. I like the kind of just like the pace, the flow of the verses. I don't know. It's just I don't know how to describe it really, but yeah, they are calling this album kind of dark in tone, and I am a fan of darker in tone and sounding music, so that works for me. Just, I think overall, just a great album. There is, as Matthew said, it is kind of a slow point towards the middle. Besides Work Song, it's sedated towards the end that it kind of slows a little bit in pace and style. I don't really know, but I think it works still. It's a great album.
Alright. It's my turn, I guess. I will say I feel like we've maybe lost the dream of a unanimous decision this time, but as always, next episode. But going on to me, though, I really did like this album, and first off, I want to say, shout out to my man, Matthew, because I actually think I do agree with him. Someone new, I did actually like Beethoven Take Me to Church. So shout out to my man, Matthew, on that, for saying that. But anyways, that one was good. Take Me to Church was good. Jackie and Wilson, I thought was... I don't know, I guess it was kind of, like, Silbing Jackie Wilson, but it was a little weird in a ways, like, I don't know, it was strange, because it's also kind of like a romance saying, but then it's also like, I love Jackie Wilson, and I don't know, I thought that song was weird. I don't understand why Ben particularly loves that one so much. But Take Me to Church, Someone New, and From Eden, and In a Week, featuring Kieran Cowley. I hope I'm not butchering that name. I like those. I don't know who Kieran is, but she's on this song with Hozier. I hope I got that right. And yeah, those are the ones I like the best. That's kind of like Cherry Wine, but maybe not quite as much as some of these other songs. Some of these songs were, though, a little filler, I have to admit. I mean, I think they had strong songwriting, but some of them had less memorable production. But on the best songs, Take Me to Church, and also in particular Someone New, the chorus is very strong. There's certainly a knack there for a very strong chorus, kind of very memorable, kind of, despite in some cases, especially in Take Me to Church, kind of the edginess of these songs, there's a very also then sing-along ability. I don't think that's a word, but catchiness, at least, that really does make them work and really kind of become a bit of a earworm, I guess, not brainworm. Worms, like, from Dune. So, it's only these songs, I think, you do see kind of a only glimpse, I guess, of a talent for good, memorable songwriting and choruses from, we've been calling him Hozier, but people I think said Hozier. So I'm just trying my best with the pronunciation, but I do think that there is certainly talent in this. Even on the weaker songs, you can kind of see it starting to come through. Good songwriting. What really comes in full force, you do have some really, really great songs. Take Me to Church and Someone New in particular, or really good ones, I thought. And just having those songs alone, in my opinion, does make this a valuable album. There's some albums where you have to take them all together. This one has dips. I mean, this one does have ones that are less memorable. It does have some stuff that I personally would consider a little filler, although still good to have if you are a fan of this style. But if you're someone who's just, wants kind of the best of the pickings, of this kind of style, this also has that. This has, especially Someone New and Take Me to Church, and that gives it a kind of a value even to a more mainstream listener and someone who isn't just a kind of a diehard Hozier fan. So that's very important, I feel, and it gives this album a lot of value. And I think I may be rambling a little bit again here, but I did think this album was very good. It's not the best album we did. It had some songs that were not super memorable. It had some that were, and that were kind of heavy hitters that kind of have to pull their weight a bit on the album. But I'd say overall it was a good listen. I did generally like the style, even if the production wasn't always perfect. And overall, I feel like it was a very worthy album that we did. Alright, does anyone have anything else to say about Hozier?
Let's go to what album you like better.
Alright, now we're going to which album we liked better. And we're starting with you, Ben.
Yes, he was finally the yapping. Anyway, so when I think I first heard the "Take Me to Church" song years ago, I think I ended up having to like. I think my reaction was pretty similar to fans, which is sounds like trailer music, and I think that is true to some extent. I think production on it does sound like trailer music. I think I overcame that. I was like, actually, this is pretty good. It has pretty good lyrics. The singing, even though it's pretty melodramatic, and it is pretty melodramatic, is pretty good. I like the song, but I see where fan is coming from. Like, the production on the Hozier-Album, I didn't really think about this much while listening to it. But he's right that it is pretty overproduced. Like, it is overproduced, and that is a flaw. It has this kind of, as he said, mid-2010 sound to it. Anyway, I still vote for the Hozier-Album. I do think fan made some good points with regards to it. I think that he put out some of his flaws, but I think that some of the songs, I think all of the songs were good, actually. For some of them, less good than others. Yeah, the production was not that great. Yeah, the singing could be excessive at times. I don't know, I still liked it more. No hate to the Dune score. I think the Dune score was quite good. But I just enjoyed Hozier more. But I will say fan has made it a lot more difficult to make that choice than it was before we started filming.
Alright, Matthew.
Before I decide which album I would pick that I like better, I like to give a comparison. Throughout this matchup, the one matchup that I was thinking about when we were doing Dune Part 2 versus Hozier self-titled was Awesome Mix Volume 1 versus Sisters by the Bluebells. Excuse me. Where it is something that is related to a movie versus something that's like a quote-unquote album. And I think, honestly, the 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 depth, like kind of the space between Awesome Mix Volume 1 and Sisters by the Bluebells was like almost from east to west. I think Awesome Mix. I didn't think it was a great album. I thought it was good. There are a lot of tracks I really liked, and then there's some tracks I could take or leave. But I thought it was good, and I straight up did not like the Sisters album. But these two albums, I think, are on the same level of good. They're like pretty enjoyable stuff. There's stuff I really liked. Neither of these albums are perfect, but I think, they are very much very competently made. That being said, I am going to ride my sandworm, and I'm going to pick Dune Part 2.
Okay, so that's one for each so far. Fan.
In the immortal words of some guy on Twitter, yeah, I'm into Dune too. Dune to others as you would have them Dune to you. So I'm picking Dune too.
I don't know who said that, but okay. That is currently 2 for Dune, 1 for Hozier. Paper.
Hozier for me.
Okay, that is a tie. And now, it is my greatest pleasure to break this tie. I didn't care for the Dune album. I'm voting for Hozier. So that is 3-1, and Hozier has won the matchup over Dune 2. Dune Part 2. The score. And so, more split than I thought it would be.
It went it went as much as I thought it would be. I didn't think that. I thought Hozier was going to win, but I did not think it was going to be 4-1. I
Well,
thought it was going to be a 3-2.
well, you had at least your own opinion known better than I had yours known, so
Yeah.
it is what it is. So that's it for that, and now we're going on to who picked what. I think most people can probably guess who picked what, but we're going to just say, anyone want to take a guess?
Paper picked the Hozier-Album.
I think God himself picked Dune.
I think that Matthew picked Dune and Paper picked Hozier.
But yeah, no, I definitely think Matt picked Dune. I mean, it's no question.
Matthew picked Dune, and there's no question. Hozier is a more interesting question, though. Because while it is true that Paper picked it, I had actually originally picked it before he joined the album club. So it's currently a joint me-Paper pick, but I picked... Because I can see the list, right? So I know what everyone else picked, so I usually try to avoid picking things people have already picked. So the only times there's usually Chris/someone else picks, it's usually because I picked it first. And that is the case here. I had this album under my submissions for a while before Paper joined. So both me and Paper picked Hozier. I technically picked it first. But he picked it once he joined.
Yeah. Ooh, voice crack. That was disgusting. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's a little interesting. There's been some other cases maybe of us having some me and other people pairings, but almost always that's been me doing my pick first because of, I can see who picks what. I don't deliberately make co-sponsorships to influence what's picked. So that about wraps up for another episode. We had an interesting amount to say, or at least Fan did. Fan carried us a bit, but we all had something to say on these albums, so that was good. So please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this absolutely left field pairing and hearing us talk about it and compare these albums. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video, unless the sandworms eat us by then.